Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Travel, life, and fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
You're listening to the Life Adventurous Podcast, presented by SayWHA Radio.
Holla! What up, Life Adventurous? Welcome to another episode of the Life Adventurous Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Holla, and I am super excited that you're here with me, and I am revved up. I cannot wait to get into this episode. But before I go any further, I just want to reference that I have pulled oracle cards from a spirit deck that Colette Baron Reed has created, and I'm using her deck as inspiration to be able to bring some inspiration into your life. And I love these cards. They're so beautiful, and I love the messages that these animals are bringing into our life. And so today's spirit animal is Porcupine Spirit. Porcupine Spirit. And the message is time for a beginner mind. And I absolutely love this because this is something that we teach and that we have taught. Like we teach our students, we have taught this in a couple different speaking events that we've been invited to, but also too, we teach it and we set the foundation to have a beginner mind. But I think that this is a tough one for people to really step into because having a beginner mind is about approaching your life, a situation, a scenario, whatever it is, about approaching something with innocence, curiosity, approaching it like you've never seen it or heard it before. And I think that's tough for a lot of people because there's a lot of things, especially with Google and YouTube and social media and everything being at our fingertips and Alexa and Google Echo, whatever, like all those things. There's all these things that are at our fingertips that we are able to be like, hey, what's the answer to this? Hey, what's the answer to that? And then two, I mean, generally speaking, there's nothing new in the world. There's really nothing new. I mean, there's new inventions, but when I'm talking about like mindset and thinking, and especially when it comes to losing weight and, you know, changing your life and being successful and that kind of stuff, like really, like the core principles still hold true. The thing that changes is someone's perspective or maybe the voice of that person, like specifically, like for example, there could be 5 different mediums or 5 different shamanic leaders. There could be 5 different intuitive coaches, and they all have something really powerful to say, but you resonate with 1 or 2 of them for many reasons. You know, maybe you have a similar life path. Maybe they have accomplished something that you want to accomplish in your own life. Maybe it's just as simple as not liking their voice or not liking their mannerisms or not liking what they stand for, and it just doesn't resonate with you. Okay. And so I said all that because what happens is when we listen to stuff like our mind, and I definitely, this is something that I can relate to, is our mind looks for something new. Like for me, I crave new experiences. Like one of the things that people think I'm crazy for is I love to drive when it's a road or like a path that I've never driven before. I love that because, for example, if I've never driven from, I did this before. So I hadn't seen El Paso. I had not been to Midland, Odessa, or some of the places out in West Texas, Amarillo. And so when I planned a trip where I flew into El Paso and then I drove up to Abilene and Big Spring and some of the towns there. And then I went over to Midland, Odessa, and then I went up to Amarillo because I wanted to see what those parts of the country looked like. Or even just, I mentioned on last week's podcast how we were in Texas, you know, even driving to Texas. I wanted to drive up through northern Mississippi and northern Louisiana because I hadn't driven that before. I'd only driven lower through I-10. And so I love seeing new roads or seeing different areas that I've never seen before. Now, granted, if I had to drive some of those drives on the regular, what would happen is that would happen to you. They would probably become boring, right? They would become repetitive and you would just kind of zone out or whatever. And so we crave new experiences. I crave fun. I crave new experiences. It's almost like people be like, oh, you know, when is it ever enough for you? And I don't know, maybe if I go to some medical professional or something, maybe I quote unquote have a diagnosed problem, but I'm not looking to have a problem. I freaking love it. But I say that because knowing that that's how you are in your mind, or knowing that that exists for you, it's like, how can you look at things in your life, especially if something has been frustrating you or if you've been struggling with something lately? Like, how can you approach it with a fresh perspective? And the fun thing is, as we transform, as we evolve, as we grow, we realize that the stories that we found to be true about our life and our situation are like no longer true, right? Like, have you ever had a story that you were really attached to in your life? Because here's the thing. In life, an event happens. That is the truth. An event happens. But when an event happens, every human who was there and present and saw the event, each human filters that event through their own perceptions and life experiences. And so the 10 people that witnessed an event and the event happened are going to tell 10 different stories, or maybe have 10 different reactions to a piece of news or something. Okay. So have you ever held on to a story too long? Okay. Because stories, they define us and we talk about them. And, you know, I had a story for a long time. So I was in a relationship for a while, and this is before Jay, but I was in a relationship for a while, and we've been together quite some time. And when we parted ways, I was like, oh, you know, all men are just worthless. I don't want to date anybody who doesn't have this certain type of job, or, you know, they're just trying to take advantage, or, you know, guys are pigs. Had a lot of stories. Had a lot of stories that I was holding on to. And so it's like every person I would meet and greet would hear this story. Oh, this is how we met, and this is how it all went down, and then all guys are pigs. I didn't really say all guys are pigs, but, you know, like, guys suck. I'm not going to find somebody who really loves me. I'm not going to find somebody who is worth a crap. Like, just whatever it is. It's a story that I had believed to be true, and I held on to that story for a while. Told it almost everywhere. And it's a thing. And sometimes you don't realize the places that you're telling the story, whether it's out loud to friends and family and strangers and coworkers and whoever you're telling, maybe even telling yourself in your mind. You're telling the story over and over and over. And sometimes you don't even realize until you become aware and you step into the porcupine spirit and you're like, all right, time for a beginner mind, right? That's essentially what happens. You may not like consciously say that, but that's essentially what happens. You say, all right, I'm going to step into this beginner mind, and I'm going to look at this with fresh eyes. And I want something different. Like, I'm sick of telling this story, man. This story doesn't own me anymore. I've done that multiple times. I'm like, oh my God, this story does not own me. I'm done telling this story. I don't need that story anymore. And the thing about life is that there are surprises and coincidences and experiences and all kinds of things that just are all over. They're right in front of our eyes. But if we're not willing to be open and look for them, we never see that they exist. And so one thing, to speak to this a little bit, is, you know, in college, I was always looking for opportunity. I was very open and looking for opportunity. And one thing that I would always say is you ask the question. If you get a no, then you know where you stand. But even so, of course, you can take it another step and be like, okay, get a no. And that means not now. And then you figure out a way to present it differently and, you know, try to get a yes. And what I mean by that is, like, in college, I wanted to go on a study abroad to Mexico, I think my sophomore year. I wanted to go sometime in the middle of college, and I was trying to get my scholarship to cover my trip to Mexico. And they were like, nope, sorry, doesn't qualify. And the Spanish classes in school, in college, were kind of boring. So I kind of stopped taking them, but I still had Spanish as a minor. And when it came to my senior year and I was like finalizing all of my credits and seeing what I could do and whatnot, I looked and I was like, well, I'm either going to have to drop my minor, or I need to fulfill the credits that are still needed to get my minor in Spanish. And so I looked into the study abroad program again. It had the exact amount of credits that I needed to fulfill my minor. I went back to the scholarship board and asked if the scholarship could cover my trip to Mexico. And they were like, yep, absolutely. So that's an example of where it was like a no turned into a yes. But the thing is like, there's a lot of things that may not be available because you're not willing to ask, or not willing to make connections or, just be open and available to the surprises that surround us. And I think right now, many of us are allowing others to dictate how we live our life. We allow others to dictate how we view our life. And when you look at the world with fresh new eyes and you detach from stories that kind of held you hostage, a whole new world opens up for you. A whole new world. And we've talked about this a lot in our trip in Texas. Since we started getting out and traveling and getting out into the outdoors and seeing different places, especially after taking, I think, an 8-month break or however long it was, we took a while. And then we started going, we went over to the East Coast of Florida, then we went to Tennessee, and now we're in Texas, and we're just experiencing different scenarios, different people, different environments, it's just different. You're experiencing the world. And the thing is, you're kind of like, oh, well, this is how it is because you're believing a story. You're believing a story that someone else has told you. For example, college. Yeah, so many college stories. But in college, my freshman year, I played volleyball. And so I missed fall ball for softball. And I went into college with 2 or 3 friends that I played summer ball with pre-college. And so they were on the softball team and they filled me in on everybody. They were like, oh, this person's this, that person's that. Gave me the scoop of who everybody was on the team because I didn't get to spend that first freshman fall ball season with everybody to acclimate in the team because I was playing volleyball. So when I came around, the girls were like, oh my God, there's this girl. She's absolutely horrendous. She's so mean. We don't like her. You should stay away from her. She's really weird. So I went into that situation. I was real standoffish and I was like, yeah, hi. And I played right field. She played center. So the thing is we still had to work together, but I was like, oh, the girls told me you were weird. I didn't tell her this, but I was like, I had my guard up. And what's interesting is that girl ended up becoming one of my best friends in college and she was really, really cool. But if I would have held on to that story from what others told me and didn't experience it myself with a beginner mind, with fresh eyes, and looked at it, with a new view. I think a lot about kids. I don't have kids. And so I may miss some of the minor details that those of you who are parents are going to be like, oh, that's not how it is. But I'm thinking about the concept here. Because I feel like with a kid, right, there's this childlike playfulness, this curiosity. And a kid is wanting to experience the world, but is a little bit hesitant. Certain things, maybe some of them just bust through and they're like, oh, I don't care. I'm going to go see everything. Because kids almost when you're younger, kids, and then also, into teenage years and college years or whatever, 2 different things. But in general, when you're younger, sometimes you're just more blissfully unaware, which can cause and get you into a lot of trouble, but also can really bring about some amazing experiences in your life. And, the kids who are the playful energy and they're going around trying to experience the world, they're going to run into something. They're going to fall off something. They're going to burn their hand. Something is going to happen that's going to have them go, oh, I don't know about that. Without the guidance of our parents or guardians or whoever's in the life, they may just can still keep that story when really maybe, for example, let's say they put their hand on the stove or in the stove and they burn it. They might be like, oh God, that's horrible. I'm never doing that again. And that's right. They probably never will. But if someone's not there to guide them and show them and teach them and help them understand that, hey, look, you put this glove on before you touch the stove. And now it's okay to do. And so I encourage you to really just sit back and think about your life. Just reflect and see where your life is working for you and where you perceive that it's not. And I want you to get out a journal, a piece of paper. I want you to get out something that you can write on. And where your life is not working for you, I want you to write those areas down. And then I want you to really just think about what are the stories that I'm telling myself, that I'm believing, that hold true for me right now about this situation. For example, things are really rough right now. You maybe don't have a job or maybe you're coming under some things financially. And so, for example, maybe your story is that, and maybe there's some truth in it. Maybe your truth is that, hey, things are tough. there's no jobs out there. There's no money to be made. I can't find any money. Like, this is horrible. My life sucks. Okay, this is really dramatic, but this also could be what you're thinking. And maybe even a bit too raw, so I apologize, but I just wanted to give an example. And that story, I want you to write down that story. Like, what is that story that exists or holds true for you about the situation that you're not comfortable with or that's not working for you? And then I want you to examine those stories and see which ones it's time for those stories to get an upgrade. What's a new story that you could adopt? What's a new philosophy? What's a new mindset that you can adopt about that thing in your life that can help you to take this porcupine spirit and take this beginner's mind to create a new future and a new possibility for yourself? Because the thing is, if we go back to the money example, the thing is maybe what you can do is when you uncover that is you're like, oh my gosh, I want to get from the library some money mindset books, or I want to start listening to some podcasts or some audios that help me to adapt a new philosophy when it comes to looking at money, when it comes to looking at opportunity. And the thing is there are people out there right now, and I'm not talking about the people that are getting blasted right now, like, oh, Amazon guy and all these people are making so much money and they're benefiting off the poor. Like, I'm not talking that. I'm just talking, there are people out there who are making a lot of really good money right now. And there are people who are spending a lot of really good money out there. So the thing is anything is possible. There are people who are buying their dream homes right now. There are people who have had the best year in their business. There are people who launched their business and had the best year in their business. So I just go back to say, look at where your life is working for you and where it is not working for you. Write down the stories where your life is not working for you. Examine those stories and see which ones that you could be willing to let go of and create a new story. And along the way, with this process, it's going to be a process. It's not going to happen immediately and overnight, but remember to be playful and just remember the beginner mindset, because like I said, that fresh look at the world, you're going to see things that didn't exist before. You're going to see things, you're going to be like, oh, wow, that's been there all along. So thank you, Porcupine Spirit, for bringing this amazing wisdom into our lives. And really, I know that this moment right here is a launch point for you. This moment is a point in your life where things are going to change. Things are going to change right now, and I can feel it. I feel very emotional, and I just feel like I want to cry because there's those of you who have been waiting for this. You've been waiting for this moment. You've been waiting for this guidance. You've been waiting for the courage. You've been waiting for the clarity. You've been waiting for this to be able to be the thing that helps you unravel everything that's been holding you back and just start to pull that string, right? So that you can really paint a new reality for yourself. All right. As I have started to say in the episodes at the end, please reach out. Follow me on Instagram at The Life Adventurist. Also, we have our business account too at 2JHalla, 2_J Halla. We've got that over there. I'm more active on stories than we are on the feed on the Life Adventures page. We'll probably look to amp that up at some point, but reach out, follow me, reach out, send a message, tag me in your stories, especially the podcast episodes that you loved. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Life Adventurous podcast. If you love this episode, remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For course information, freebies, and to stay connected, join our Ohana, that means family, at www.2jhalla.com/Ohana. Remember to stay positive, enjoy the journey, and most of all, keep those eyes open for all of the adventures surrounding you.